Hello and welcome to Katrina's Creations. This is the Wednesday episode. And today's episode, I had a viewer ask a question in my Ask Me Anything section regarding the plain people that live in my area, and if I could talk a little bit about them and what their crafts are, what their lifestyle is like. So I will do my best. I am not one of the plain people, but when I say plain people, it means that they are people who live separately. They follow certain rules of their church as far as dress and behavior go. Some of those groups throughout the country are Brethren, Mennonite, Amish, Dunkard, Hutterites, Seventh-day Baptist, Old River Baptist. There's numerous different groups or sects that call themselves part of the plain people. The women do not wear jewelry, not even a wedding ring. Most of their accessories, like pocketbooks, things like that, if they carry them at all, they're black. So anyway, I thought I would talk about the three that are in my area where I live, and that would be the Brethren, the Mennonite, and there are a few Amish in our area. However, if you go an hour north of where I live or an hour east of where I live, that's where the majority of the Amish live, is up towards Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, or out towards Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So we'll start with the Brethren, which are probably the more moderate of the three groups that are near me. The Brethren wear, sometimes they wear just normal clothing, the same as anyone else. Most of the time, however, they wear a dress and a skirt. They don't have any certain dress style. They just wear a dress and a skirt. And they will wear a head covering, either like a scarf, or sometimes it's an actual netted type of head covering. Otherwise, and the men dress pretty much the same as anyone else would. They don't tend to wear jewelry for the most part. If they wear the head covering, you usually do not see the jewelry with them. So that's the Brethren. Then there's the Mennonite. Now the Mennonite can run a wide gamut. There are some Mennonites who wear pants and you wouldn't know them as any different from anywhere else. Then there are more moderate Mennonites, which look very similar to how the Brethren dress. And then there are the stricter Mennonites, which are like the Eastern Mennonites. They wear a very standardized dress. It's very similar to the Amish dress, with the exception that it usually is patterned. So it's a cotton material, but it usually has a small print on it. And it's composed of a one-piece dress, and it's gathered a little bit at the waist. And the front of the bodice actually has a slit in the front. And then they have like a cape that comes across the front that covers that open slit area. They will wear, like, their shoes are black, their stockings are usually black. They do drive cars, but their cars will be a dark color, either a dark blue or black, and there's no chrome on them. So the bumpers, everything is black on the car, or dark, just nothing shiny. They wear the head covering that, again, is like a real stiff netting, similar to what you would do needlepoint with. It looks very, very similar to that, but it's like a pleated little cap that they would wear. And it doesn't normally have any strings attached to the cap. They do have electricity in their house. They do believe in further education. In fact, there are Mennonite colleges. And they do use the internet to a certain extent. Depends on the group. My mother used to work for some Mennonite who owned a sewing machine company. They owned a sewing machine store that sold Bernina sewing machines, and they were very limited on what they were allowed to use the internet for. So a lot of times my mother would actually have to do the downloads for some of their updates and things like that. She would have to do that because they weren't allowed to. So that would be the Mennonites, and that's what's predominantly around me, is Brethren and Mennonite. Now we go on to the Amish. Now the Amish, there are very few that drive cars and have electricity, at least in our area. The majority of the Amish within an hour from where I live, they have a distinctive dress. It's very similar to the Mennonite dress, except that it is a solid color cotton, and they have an apron that they wear over top, not necessarily maybe on the top bodice portion, but they have like a black apron that it's either black or it matches the color of the dress they're wearing. Sometimes if a girl is unmarried, she wears a white apron. If she's married, she wears a black apron. The cap that they wear for their prayer cap is larger than the Mennonite cap, and for our area, the caps that they wear, they're kind of heart-shaped. They have like two lobes off of each side in the back. The ruling idea as far as how strict the group is if you look at how wide the brim is on the cap and the hats that the men wear, how wide the brim is. The wider the brim, usually the stricter the group. I didn't finish with the Mennonite men. Mennonite men generally wear button-down shirts, and they will wear a black hat that resembles the type of hats that men wore like in the 1940s. It's not quite a bowler. It has like a crease in the top of it, and it has kind of short, curved brim to it. Like I said, it reminds me of hats I saw like Fred McMurray wear in the 40s. The Amish, the men wear a hat that looks very similar to a Panama hat. So it's a flat type of hat with a wide, flat brim. In the summertime, it is a straw hat. In the wintertime, it is a black felt hat. They have no electricity in their houses. They use buggies to get around. It's kind of a square-shaped buggy. If they're married, it's a closed-in buggy. If they are unmarried, it's an open buggy. Their education, they go no further than the 8th grade. They don't start till they're 6 years old, and they stop by the time they're in 8th grade, which would be like around 13 years old. That's all the education they have. They do not allow pictures to be taken of them. They believe that's a graven image, and so they don't want their pictures taken. Their houses have absolutely no decoration. They don't have curtains and things like that. They have just window shades. Everything is very plain inside as well. Now, I do have a little Amish doll, which I'll show you. It's not quite correct, but I'll point out the differences. So let me show it to you. This is a little Amish souvenir doll. And for my area, this is fairly correct. You can see there is, when they wear the top part of the apron, the bodice, this is kind of what it looks like. And in the back, it comes to a point. They don't always wear this. And sometimes, like I said, the girls wear a white apron. They don't use buttons, so everything is hooked with straight pins. This bonnet is incorrect. It does not match the color of their dress. This would be a bonnet they wear over top of their prayer covering in the wintertime, and it's black. Normally in the summertime they would not have a bonnet on at all, but it's never the same color as their dress. It would match the black of their apron. And in the wintertime, they don't wear heavy coats. They wear these heavy woven black shawls with a fringe. They're kind of squared off. They kind of look like a blanket type of thing, and they wear that to wrap around themselves. So that's kind of as close of a representation as I can give you. Like I said, it's not exactly accurate, but it's close. Now, as far as crafts that they do, the Mennonite and the Amish are both well known for their woodworking, for making furniture. As far as the men go, they're known for making furniture, making sheds. If you go out towards Elkhart, Indiana, a lot of them work at building RVs and trailers. They work for a lot of those type of companies. They also do a lot of carpentry, home repair. those are the type, I mean, you see them in all walks of life, but those would be the major things that you would see the men in. Women, for the most part, once they have children, a lot of times are home with the kids. But if they are working, it's generally a bakery. In the case where we get groceries at an Amish-owned market. They work in the market. They do a lot of cottage industry like sewing. They are very, very well known for their quilts. Amish quilts are very distinctive. They're very high in demand, and they bring in a lot of money. I mean, one single Amish quilt can be hundreds of dollars. They are characteristic in that the background of them is all black. It's not white. It's all black. And then they use the colors from like their dresses, so they're more vibrant colors. Like I said, they don't use printed material for their clothing, but they do wear a lot of jewel tone. I mean, you're not going to see one in hot red or a bright, bright yellow or anything like that, but they wear a lot of jewel toned colors. And so they use those and they incorporate those into their quilts. So as a result, their quilts resemble stained glass windows. They're absolutely beautiful. And a lot of the Amish women have a cottage industry by making the quilts and selling them. The other question that was asked was, how do they interact with non-Amish people? They actually refer to us as Englishers. I'm not quite sure why, but they do. They refer to us as Englishers, and they do interact. I mean, they're not going to socialize with you. They're not going to go out to dinner with you, more than likely, unless you're a neighbor or something like that. But if you're standing in line or if you start talking to them, they will sit there and have a conversation with you. I've done that, on several occasions. It's not a problem. Quite a few years ago, we went on a camping trip, and in the site next door to us was a whole group of Mennonites. It was quite a few families, and they were camping together. And they invited us over because they found out we played guitar and we played Christian music. And so we had a nice time sitting around the campfire and singing and playing music together. So they will socialize with you, but not on a real close level. But they will interact with you. So they're not separated to that extent where they will not talk to you or anything like that. Most Amish get married at the age of around 21. You don't see too many of them getting married when they're in their teens, although it does happen, but most of them are in their 20s. As far as the Mennonites, I'm not sure of, but I do know with the Amish, it tends to be around 21. As I was saying, their houses are very plain. There's not a whole lot of ornamentation at all. So they make up for that by having beautiful gardens, beautiful flowers and things around their house, and the quilts that they make on the beds. And it's really interesting when you go in the springtime and they are out. The tractors, if they have a tractor, it can't have rubber on it. I'm not quite sure why, but they have steel-wheeled tires. They basically are on metal rims. They don't have the rubber tires underneath it. Or they have draft horses. And it's really fascinating when you go through Lancaster County in the springtime and you see them out there with 4 draft horses and they're plowing the field. And the women all do their laundry. You drive by the farms and the laundry's hanging out on clotheslines. Just all these beautiful colored dresses hanging out on the clotheslines in the springtime. It's always fun to watch. And they don't have telephones in their houses. That's another thing. They are allowed sometimes to have a telephone booth at the end of their driveway, but they don't believe in having a phone in the house itself. And like I said, they don't have electricity, so they use oil lamps and everything that's non-electrified. Some of them will have generators that they use, especially the men working in some of the shops. If they're building like sheds and construction things, they will have their power equipment will be powered by a generator, but they're not allowed to have electricity. And in fact, the grocery store that we shop at, they have everything's solar powered. So Yeah, and there's lots of skylights in there, and so it's interesting. So hopefully this answered some of your questions about the plain people, and I guess that's it for this week. So I will see you again on Saturday. Thanks again for watching.